Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching this monthly in-depth ag forecast brought to you by Ag South and Ag Carolina Farm Credit System. All right, here's what we're going to do in today's video. I'm going to walk you through what April gave us and how May transitioned. We got to talk about the Bermuda high, and it's kind of flexed back into our region in the near term, but I think it's going to break down relatively soon after that. And I'm going to stretch this out as long as I can. I've got some surprising information for you about El Nino that I think you need to see, and we're going to give a good summer forecast out of this, and even talk about the hurricane season. All right, so here's the review. I don't think I have to tell you too much about this, but it's pretty simple. During the months of March and April's what's shown here, the Bermuda high was extensive. It was pushed to the east, and it just opened this entire area up to high pressure, light winds, and very stagnant conditions. In fact, let me show you the winds here. Just have a look. This is April wind speed when you compare it to the historical average, and I've labeled it for you stagnant. You were well below your typical average, more than 1.5 standard deviations below the mean. Meanwhile, where I live, it was extremely windy, large dust storms. We had a lot of problems, even though it was very wet. The winds would come through, dry out the topsoil during cultivation and planting, and we would have these large dust storms that would hit the middle part of the country here. Now that's it. The Bermuda high was everything in the month of April, and it did break down eventually. But before it did, look how warm things were in the month of April. We were way ahead of average on our early season accumulation of heat units and GDDs, whatever way you want to look at the accumulation of heat. We were getting it. Well, then what happened in the month of May, the beginning of it, is that the Bermuda high left, and the big ridge built into the west. And colder air just dove south around just a bigger upper level low that sat over parts of eastern Canada and like the Hudson Bay. And we saw repeatedly chances of getting colder and colder air in the area. Now, cold for us in May here is not cold, but there were frost events that hit late in the season. We had a lot of frost in the Midwest that was late after a very, very mild April. And we're all just questioning where this is going to take us because it did at least revive precipitation across the South while making it much drier in the Midwest. These are the May 1st to May 11th precipitation ranks. So if you're growing corn over here, I just want to tell you something. Corn and beans, they planted rapidly, even with the colder weather in parts of the western Corn Belt. The Pacific Northwest was very, very dry. There was actually snow in Canada early in the month, and then, of course, in April. But we did get storms down here. Some of them were severe. Some of them produced some heavy rain. It's raining right now as I'm talking about this in this area, which we'll take a look at in a moment. There's an issue, though. And if you look, it kind of mimics one of the problems we saw this winter with snow. There was kind of this corridor right in through here in North Carolina that did not get that big snowfall event. Remember that big? I don't remember what month it was in, but we had a big snowfall event this winter. It missed us. And the farther you go into the mid-Atlantic, in through parts of Virginia, we are still very dry in this area. Now, as I mentioned, it's raining right now as I'm recording this early in the morning here on May the 12th. And any additional moisture we can be getting across this section of the country is critical. We need more of it up the coast, of course, but this moisture is desperately needed because in the southeast, that part of Georgia and Florida and this corner of South Carolina are the driest. They are the deepest on the drought monitor. And right now, the entire United States, 75% covered in some form of drought. Now, what we're going to be questioning and trying to figure out is, where is this pattern taking us in mid to late May? What does the rest of May into June look like? And then how does this all shape up as we start to talk about kind of the big topic in meteorology right now, which is El Nino. And I'm going to get to that in just a few seconds here. All right, first, Bermuda high. What you're looking at is the pressure pattern across the Atlantic Ocean, and you get most of the United States in this. And what I'm watching for is this. As I play it forward, I want to keep an eye on this high pressure cell right there because it seems to be opening up by this weekend such that it's beneath this deep low that's going off, the Canadian Maritimes. And I want to know if it's going to sneak in behind it and occupy some space, and it is. This is Sunday. So look, by this upcoming weekend, look at the flow and watch the Bermuda high slide underneath and put us all back into higher pressure again. And with that taking shape like that, storm systems come out of the central U.S. and go to Canada. They don't go to Maine. Get it? They go north instead of northeast. And that gets us drier. But overall, okay, the high pressure cell still sitting there by the 19th and the 20th. We start to see a little bit of a shift. Right there. That's what I want. And as we get out there past the 20th, 21st, 22nd, the high pressure cell tends to move a bit farther to the north. And that is a great place for it if we need moisture back into this area. You see, to get the moisture in, we've got to have the flow coming in like this, versus, if you have a look, let's go back. This flow is doing this. See how it's curling around, or it's coming all the way into this? No, that keeps us out of the right setup for getting some moisture into place. So I bring all that up because we're just trying to look. Let's actually blow these up. Here's our next 5 days. Okay, you got the moisture coming through right now, but overall we are drier. Not dry, but drier. I'll show you a little system coming through here in a few moments. This is just sliding forward. We notice that when the Bermuda high makes its big flex in, where does the corridor open up? Well, right in through here. This is day, that's day 5 through 10 right there. See it? But take a look at what the models are trying to do. That Bermuda high, which was pushing in through here, ends up trading places and moving up farther to the north and east. And therefore, when you go from day 10 beyond, watch it fill in. See that? And we're starting to get better chances of recovering moisture, which means the Bermuda high coming in now is not setting up permanent residence, at least according to the latest model runs, like it did in the months of March and April. And that's good. I was worried it was going to get stuck, but some better evidence suggests that it's not. Now, as I mentioned, we do have one system I want to talk to you about. It's coming through the Great Lakes later today. There it is, while the rain clears out through the southeast. All right. No major severe weather threat of this widespread. There are going to be some stronger storms, but watch this front coming through the Midwest. This is Tuesday afternoon, getting into the overnight hours. Once we get into early Wednesday morning, the front tries to clear the Appalachian Mountains by midday on Wednesday, and could be bringing in some showers and storms through the mid-Atlantic down into parts of Virginia and North Carolina. And as it does so, we will take any moisture that this thing can give us. So as I mentioned, there is some near-term chances of getting some moisture in this. If we flip over to the European models, we can see a little bit farther out. There's the frontal boundary coming through on Wednesday, right there. That's Wednesday afternoon and evening, clearing through. And then we know that after this, we're not expecting much. So we're all the way out to Friday now, getting into the weekend. Bermuda highs in place. This is now the 19th. Now watch. You need to keep an eye on these highs over here. From the 19th, there it is, to the 20th, there it is. Got it? Watch from the 21st on. See how it starts to open more to the north? And what happened? You weaken this whole pressure pattern, or spread it out a bit, and we can finally start to get some moisture in place. But it's pretty far out there. It's 10 days from now, a little bit more than that. And that happens, and we start to see better chances. Look right there. We start to put the moisture back into place. And if we can do that, we'll add up some moisture, and we need to get this added up. But let's go ahead and add it up and see what the models are suggesting. Let's go to precipitation here, and let's play it forward. So there's the system coming through. It's not much. We have the storms today. That system coming through Wednesday, Thursday, not much. So we wait. Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. See it's encroaching here? Still, we're drier. A lot of us are. But after the 21st, we begin to fill in a bit. And there is ensemble support for this. Now, the bad part about it is we don't fill in, take a look, for another 10 days. There's basically 2 chances in the near term of getting some moisture through, but we got to wait. But it's at least a signal that I can latch on to because I've watched it now for the last several days in the forecast models. What about beyond that? Well, I'm going to show you a longer range outlook. This is the GFS extended, and it goes from May 15 to June 15. And I'm going to tell you something. These subseasonal models are really struggling right now. This is the forecast, and yes, I buy into this wholeheartedly. I buy into wetter conditions. Well, maybe I should redraw that. Maybe more here. But I do have some bigger question marks the farther we go into the month, especially there. Not so much you all, but here. And the reason I question it is because look at the European model for the exact same time period. See how it's trying to keep this quarter open and you closer to average precipitation versus the GFS, which had this large dry area down here. To be honest, I don't know which to focus in on because the models have been so wildly bad. So we're going to do this entirely differently for June, July, and August here in just a few moments, okay? I wanted to show you the models for precip, but understand I have very little trust in them. Before I do that, though, I got to talk about temperatures because we have some serious heat coming soon. It is not today. All that heat today and tomorrow is in the plains. You're still cool, cooler than average all the way out to 30. Now, by the way, cooler than average is absolutely beautiful. I mean, these temperatures are amazing. But this is Thursday, getting into Friday, Saturday. Watch the heat come forward to you on Saturday, Sunday, and then once we get out there to Monday next week, we're deep into the 90s. And the Climate Prediction Center did release this for the 19th through the 25th. There is a slight risk of hazardous temperatures, much warmer than average. And I wanted to show you those by looking at the European model real quick. So today, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So we know we're cool until the weekend. That's May 16th. The 17th, 18th, look at these temperatures. We're talking 10 to 15 degrees above average. That's Monday the 18th. The 19th is the same thing. The 20th is the same thing. But you all know what happens after the 20th, right? The high slides north. Watch on the 21st, 22nd, 23rd. The moisture starts to come back and the temperatures drop. Well, they at least go back down to normal. So I like this. Now, bigger picture, same models I don't really trust too well, I think are at least doing better with temperatures here. So this is the week 2. This would be the 18th to the 25th. That's when we have the majority of our heat. As I play it out beyond that, let's go out there to week 3. Still a little bit warmer than average. Week 4, getting into week 5. Notice how much of the heat is staying west as we approach and get past the solstice. We're almost at the end of June in this forecast. And that's where we start to ask some big questions about where this is going to go June, July, and August. So here's what I did, okay? I went over to one of my favorite tools. It's called Climate at a Glance. I picked the Southeast climate region, which you were all in. And I said, let's just make a graph going back to 1895 of precipitation for the Southeast for June, July, August. And one of the things I can do is I can rank them so I can look at your really wet and really dry years because I want to do an analysis between the two. Now, you're going to hear a lot of narrative about this big developing El Nino. Yes, we were in La Nina in February, and we have completely raced through neutral, and we're now up here fully into El Nino territory. And this is impressive. If you look at this graphic, this is maybe one of the more important ones I'm going to show you today. There's South America. That's Indonesia, Malaysia, Papua New Guinea, this region. And this is going down in the ocean. So you're basically going along the Pacific Ocean, right along the equator, okay? See that right there? That's 5 to 8 degrees Celsius above average water. That's very warm. And it will be surfacing over the next 3 to 6 months here. On the eastern side, because the international date line's in the middle, on the eastern side of the international date line. Now, that's important. It's also important to understand that as it emerges, it could be one of the strongest El Ninos in history. And I'm going to tell you something, and I'll prove it to you. When it comes to your summer precipitation, June, July, August, the heart of summer, I don't think this matters for you. It has a role, but it's not that big of a role. Even though we're looking at a 40% chance, according to the European model, of having an historic El Nino. That would be one where the ocean temperatures are above 3 degrees above normal at the surface. Right now they're 5 to 8 below the surface, but 3 degrees above average at the surface. Even though that is the forecast and the NMME supports it, these are two different models, I still need you to see this, okay? I went and ran an analysis in the Southeast on June, July, and August precipitation anomalies versus El Nino and La Nina. And you know what your correlation coefficient is? 0.03. There almost is no correlation. Now, if I'm in the West, that's different. But here, nope. Summer precipitation. This is if you bank or kind of put them all together in these box and whisker plots, La Nina, neutral, El Nino. And if you look, El Nino and La Nina they're almost identical. You have your greatest spread during non-El Nino and La Nina years. And if you want to see it one more way, take a look. I took every year from 1950 to 2025, okay? And I color-coded the year based upon El Nino, neutral, or La Nina, blue being La Nina, red being El Nino, and rank them. So driest to wettest. And you don't notice how they don't separate. Now, there are parts of the world where they completely separate, like the Caribbean, Central America, Indonesia, India, key other growing areas, which you do compete with, where the separation's huge. And I'm going to show you that next. Because what I think this El Nino is going to look like is it's going to be what we call an east-based El Nino. And in May through July, all of our big historic east-based El Nino events, which are listed here, 2015 being the most recent of which, the only real signal is here over Indonesia, very dry. You say, well, why is that? Well, in this area, when there's an El Nino, the trade winds reverse. They go that direction. Well, it's anomalously that direction. And here, there's a big separation, a void, sinking air, dry conditions, a big high-pressure cell. And you know the effects of those. But what did we see May, June, July for our area? On the whole, no change. We were a little drier parts of Texas and Louisiana, a little drier in the mid-Atlantic, but we end up getting storms here in May and June, and we're waiting on to see if those storms come through as we approach the end of May and get into June in that region. What about beyond that? July, August, September. Now, this is really important. You know, like, oh, shoot, we're back over on the drier side of average. Possibly. But one of the big reasons contributing to this is you've got August and September in the mix. And August and September, we're into the hurricane season. And I'll show you in a few moments that during the hurricane season, we tend to suppress a lot of activity. And that tends to kill the Gulf, tends to kill the Caribbean. But we need to watch for high pressure here, right where I told you to keep an eye on it, because that could influence the track of tropical systems to bring them more along the East Coast than the Gulf or the Caribbean. Usually the main development region's dead. Okay, what are we going to do then? We're going to look at some models. First of all, yep, this El Nino is likely going to be strong by August, September, October. Look at this thing. I mean, some of the models are up here, full 4 degrees above average. But I think we need to pay attention to the ocean temperatures in the Atlantic. We need to watch them carefully. But before I do that, I'm going to zoom in on the United States, and I'm going to show you what the models are suggesting in terms of precipitation. So let's get in there, do seasonal here. Let me take you back. All right, that's the May, June, July forecast. By the way, not dry. This is the June, July, August. Still. Look how dry it is down here, but not here. The European model. July, August, September. All right, what do we do with that? That's just one shade on this side of average. The real dry signal's down farther to our south. This is August, September, October. All right, now we're starting to compile some drier in the model. But wait until I show you the other models, right? This is the NMME, the National Multi-Model Ensemble. And it's got wetter in the North Atlantic, June, July, August, a little drier back in the Mississippi Valley. Kind of looks like my analog, doesn't it? Then it's got the July, August, September. Maybe a little drier in Georgia, but wet here. Do you see how these models are all over the place? I mean, they're all over the place. And the reason they're not doing well for us comes back to this. These models are strongly forced by El Nino events, and El Nino just doesn't matter to this degree here. Now, I haven't talked much about temperatures. I have yet to establish what I think the summer temperature pattern is going to be. It seems, and I'll show you this in a few moments, that the greatest risk of heat is going to be west, but you still get hot every summer regardless. But I'll get to that summer forecast in just a few moments. All right, what you need to know is this. All summer long, pay attention to high pressure here. If we are not going to go into more drought, if we're going to relieve drought, get good summer rains on these crops, the Bermuda High needs to flex north, not east. And the flow comes around it and pushes that moisture into this area. It really helps if there's a big area of high pressure here as well. This comes around like this comes around like that, and this whole corridor ends up wetter. Okay? Now, what happens with the ocean temperatures during these years? Now, look, remember I told you there's no strong correlate. Look at this. There's even a hint like maybe a La Nina would be better. But when that occurs, and there's a big high pressure cell there and a high pressure cell there, it's this middle area that gets soaked. Now, are any of these years in my current analog package? Nope. None of them are. None of those years are in the analog package right now. But what I'm telling you is, regardless of that, we need to watch for every time high pressure starts to sneak north up toward Maine and Nova Scotia. That is our key to getting moisture in the middle of summer. And so I want to show you maybe why you saw the European model earlier. Let's go back here, showing some moisture in June, July, August. This is where high pressure is expected to be in May, June, July. See how it's very expansive? But this Bermuda High is not all the way over here. It's a bit farther to the north, and that's why the model's attempting to bring in better precipitation during that time frame. But then August, September, October, this is what the problem is going to be. The model's going after too much high pressure in the main development region, which is why it is also suppressing the hurricane season. Let's just see here. Let's do seasonal anomalies, and let's take it out there to the heart of the hurricane season, right there. And so this is going to be an interesting year where we see less than normal activity through this particular region. You're going to have to watch that carefully. Now, I want to show you something because it's not available yet by the National Weather Service, but they're going to release this, I think, on the 17th. I attempted to recreate what I think they are going to say about summer. And notice I didn't put much with respect to high pressure out here. I think we're going to have higher pressure in the Caribbean, higher pressure, in the Gulf, higher pressure in the Gulf of Alaska. And that's where we're going to see to the south wet conditions and to the north dry conditions with heat all up and down the west coast and the Intermountain West, by the way. And what I think this is going to do is create some drought risk problems along the Gulf Coast, according to the National Weather Service. But we're going to have to watch for cascading storms coming toward the Appalachian Mountains. What I hope is that the Appalachian Mountains don't create a rain shadow for North and South Carolina and Georgia. So if you're sitting here going, well, Eric, what do I take away from this? I'm going to tell you, you need to watch high pressure. We need to watch it together. You can do it on my website. It's all there, agweather.com, please. It's partnerships like I have with, with Ag Carolina and Ag South that I can make this website and run it. You can look at any time you want. Look at this. If you've never been on my site, you got to go to it. You can get a local forecast. You can see radar. You can see all of the weather models you'd ever want to see. You can come in here and look at your hyperlocal radar. I've got it. I built it all for you so you can get down there, drill in, and see the stuff you want to see. You want your local forecast? Well, it populates Muhammad because that's where I live. But you even want to see your historical, like where are we at in precipitation this point in the year? We've got it. If you want to see your seasonal forecast, there you go. Weekly, monthly, it's all lined up there for you to use based off the European model. If you even got a spray decision maker in here, you can come in and see if the conditions are good or bad for spring. You can follow it daily, and then I'll keep you updated monthly with the bigger picture. But I want to finish this with one last bigger picture, and that is here. And it is the seasonal hurricane forecast that was released by Colorado State. They've been doing this for a long time. They are kind of an industry standard for us, and I want to show you what they're doing. In every category for hurricanes, they are forecasting that this year will be below the number of average. Got it? So fewer named storms, fewer named storm days, fewer hurricanes, fewer hurricane days, see how it goes. And as a result of all that suppressing high pressure late in the summer and into fall across the Caribbean, the Gulf, and the main development region, we could get into one of those seasons where we have a lot of storms more in the North Atlantic. And we got to watch that very, very carefully. Okay, so you've kind of got your assignment on what to be paying attention to. I know what I'm watching for you. Remember, you're going to hear a lot of hype about El Nino, a whole lot. And you've seen the correlation coefficients. You've seen the graphics. We understand that using it as a predictor for the Southeast is not wise. So let's not over-attribute it. By the way, if you want to know what you can actually attribute the variance in precipitation to, it is less than 5%. Less than 5% of the summer variance in precipitation in the Southeast is caused by El Nino or La Nina. That's it. Now, winter, we didn't talk about it, but winter, different, way different. I'm talking about summer. I think you're going to have a wet winter, 2026-27. But we'll talk about that over the coming months. I appreciate your attention, everybody. We'll talk again soon. Thanks.